Here we are, riffing while black. This is Dr. Kazike Prince. I'm with my friend. How you doing, friend? Dr. Lawrence?
I'm good, brother. How you be today?
I am good. I was sharing with you before we got started. I was just on a little small event to meet with James Talrico, who's the state representative here in the state of Texas. He's running for Senate. I haven't figured out who
Senate.
they're going to be, but one of the big things was like, is this brother down? Is he real? Is he for the cause? And
Mm,
so it was, I thought it was mostly positive. I think a lot of people still walked out kind of uncertain, but it started the conversation. So I thought I
yeah.
was glad to be there for that event. So how you doing? How's the Chicago doing?
Chicago is good, man. Look, first of all, it ain't freezing cold, so this is you know how Chicagoans are, right? Everything is related to the weather. Like, what the weather doing? You're like, we good. The sun is out. We ain't got 15 feet of snow. It's not 5 degrees, so we good, right? Everything else is like is gravy on top of that. So weather is good. The sun is
It's
out.
above 50.
And
Is that what you're saying?
it's above 50, bruh. I'm like, look, I'm gonna go out, get in the car, and we'll go run around. I'm like, so I'm great. I'm like, Chicago's great,
Go
but
outside.
go out, go
Cool.
outside. Can I tell you a real quick
For
story?
sure.
'Cause I'm really excited about it. So remember I told you, like, I do some mentoring work with like 5 other black men. We go to this high school. We had our last session with the kids for this school year on Tuesday, and we've got sophomore boys, junior girls. And we've worked with both of these grades for 2 straight years, and to tell you something, I had this most of phenomenal experience because, like, these kids, like, we could see them grow through this year, and, like, the level of insight and depth and the nuance of how they were thinking and why, like, one of the young ladies, she was like she wanted to go to the Air Force, and she left it off her list of colleges. I was like, "Well, why?" I said, "What happened to the Air Force?" I'm like, "You was all up on it." She's like, "Well, I've been thinking about this." She's like, "It's off my list." I was like, "Okay, why?" She's like, "Well, with everything that's going on in the country and with the war and everything, and she's like, I ain't trying to go to the war and be like, get shot at." She's like, "I'd put it on hold." But the thing that the kicker for me was she was like, "I'd put it on hold for now because things might change." And I thought, because I was like, put it on hold forever. But what I love about what I was like, I don't know why you put it on the list in the first place. That's just me. But I was like, but what I loved about what she said was the thoughtfulness of circumstances are this. This is what's on the ground right now. And it's impacting my decision. And if those situations or if those circumstances change, I might actually make a different kind of decision. And I was like, this is a 17-year-old, right? And I thought, wow, that is really deep and nuanced thinking. And I was like, my goodness, I'm like, maybe we ain't so bad off after all. I'm like, but just the growth, the growth to be able, and she couldn't have made that, she wouldn't have said that 6 months ago,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
There's a growth and maturity. So I was like really excited to hear that and spend time and just be able to say to these young people just how proud, I personally am and we are of them and their growth and development was super dope. So I just wanted to shout that out
No,
to my kid. That was a cool experience to be able to be a part of that and to watch them grow and develop. So I'm like
bruh.
super
I
excited.
love that. And I'm glad to hear that because oftentimes, particularly boomers and Gen X, which we're both, you and I are part of, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah.
You see a lot of negative commentary about how they feel about millennials and Gen Z and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. And I think it's because we sometimes worry about how are they gonna, come
Yeah.
around, right, and show up
Right.
and do things and take care of us when we're older.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, but every generation has said that. My mom's generation, the generation before her, said the same kind of worry. And I don't know. I have a lot of faith because I think they're smart. I think the truth is circumstances are what they are, and they see what's going on. And they're not always sure what to do. But that who was I?
Right.
So I'm really glad to hear that because given the opportunity, I think there's some brilliant stars out there. They just need opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
So
Right. And a little opportunity. And as a friend of mine said, and a little support,
yes,
like how you're processing through that, how you're thinking through it ain't crazy, makes a lot of sense. What are your options? I mean, I think there's something for each of us as we're growing, mentoring, developing, helping young people, is like there are answers. There's really a right answer. It's like what feels right to you, for you, based upon who you are and how you are in the world. So I mean, it was dope, man. I mean, it was dope.
Well, great to hear that. I do want to mention that Onisha Williams, who has been a guest with us before as a co-host, she will be joining us a little later. She had a little bit of a conflict with the schedule, but she's gonna be here because we have some topics. We wanted to invite her because one of the topics we're going to talk about today is interracial dating, and we thought that would be a really great topic to have conversation about. Another topic we were talking about different names. This came up several weeks ago actually because my man here was like, "Let's talk about these names you got." And then another topic that Onisha actually wanted to talk about, which I think is important, and we all I think are concerned about this, is the domestic violence homicides that have been coming up with recent weeks. It's always been a problem, but it's been in the news over the last several weeks of people who have died and been killed by their partners and spouses for domestic violence. But I think the thing that I think Onisha wanted to bring is how we need to really make sure that we're centering women in this conversation because there's been a lot of decentering, focusing on the men and their behavior and stuff like that. And then we have a side eye. Our side eye is the apology tour that Tucker Carlson is on right now. Tucker, poor thing, he's like regretting
Right.
what he's been doing.
I, re- I, re- I regret all the stuff that I did to get Trump in the office and the lies I told to help him. Okay, what's different to anyway?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like I almost want to put Tucker and Kanye in the same class. Y'all dig
Oh,
some deep ass holes, but okay, it's not impossible, but it's gonna take some time. Yeah, so side eye for him. But before we get to our first topic, we wanted to do one of our djembe cards. And today I thought this would be good. Speaking my truth might look like blank. Speaking my truth might look like blank. You wanna go first?
I will. I'm gonna steal this from a conversation I had just like 20 minutes before we hopped on. Speaking my truth might look like silence. Sometimes we saying too much, we doing too much, and sometimes it's well. My mama used to say back in the day, boy, sometimes you got to leave well enough alone. Sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut. Right? Right? I'm like, I don't think I really understood what that meant. Now that I'm old, I'm like, Shirley had a point. Sometimes you just like, I ain't got nothing to say.
I love that. You remind me of my mother who this is when I was about, I don't know, 16, 17, and I had something to
Hmm.
say. And my mom, she raised me to be thoughtful and just, speak my
Uh,
mind and blah, 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 but not with
right.
her. And so one
Hmm.
time I was talking and I was like, I'm gonna make
What you
my
say?
point.
But not with
No,
her.
no, not with her. Everybody else. And and I was talking. Now I'm
Hmm.
6'2". My mom was about five
Right.
four on a good day, right?
Hmm.
She just walked up and grabbed my lips. They said, "You don't shut your mouth." And at the time I didn't like
Boy,
it, but I was like, I hear what you're saying. All right, all right. For me, speaking my truth, it was kind of as I mentioned earlier. Got to meet and talk with. It wasn't my first time meeting James Tallarico, but it was good to see him in a smaller group of people. It was about I don't know 30 folks, black leaders in this area. And one of the things I said to him, and this is back to the card, is
mhm.
my way of speaking my truth is sometimes trying to say it in a way that maybe help it stand out in some way, you know? So
Okay.
the way I talk to him, I say, Austin is it's kind of like a white Atlanta, you know? You know, white folks come here and they just love it.
Austin, white Atlanta.
Yes, yes,
By the way, I love how you centered blackness in that,
yes,
is the white Atlanta, right?
yes. And so I said that to him again because I wanted to stand out. I wanted him to hear where I'm coming from. And if he thought about it, he would know what I'm talking about. And if he doesn't know, he could ask his friend, his black friend next to him.
His black friends,
So what was
right,
he saying?
right, right.
And the other thing I said, "Oh, I'm not asking you to be any different than you are, right? You from this part of Texas. This is your people. Blah blah blah. I just need you to black it up a little bit. Black it up.
Need you to black it.
And what I meant by that is start with us first instead of coming to us last. If you want our vote,
Yeah.
if you want our endorsement, if you want our support, you want our enthusiasm, start with us because we already know you're going to the other side of town to talk to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying don't do what they always do. Do something different. And so for me,
Mhm.
speaking
Yes.
my truth is hopefully in a way that will something stand out,
Mm.
but hopefully in a
Mhm.
way that's thoughtful and not mean spirited, but
Yeah.
try to make a point. So that's my attempt at speaking my
I
truth.
love it.
Hopefully with some humor.
With a little bit of humor. Right, right. And some it is what I love what you're saying though, because it's you know, the Austin is the white Atlanta comment in particular. You gotta kind of think about that for a minute. Like, that's gonna stand out. He gonna be thinking about that tonight when he goes home to whomever he may go home to. Be like, what does that mean?
What do you
What are
think?
the implications? Like, what was he really trying to say to me?
Right.
You're like,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Like,
And the cool thing
yeah.
about it is that the black people in the room are like, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Insistent
They
is
like,
like, mm-hmm.
on Kazike, KP, Kevin. Mhm. Dr. Prince. They like, he
He
spoke.
said it again.
Hope you heard
He
him.
said it again.
Right.
Well, because we're kind of waiting for Onisha to show up, we want to leave the interracial dating and domestic violence homicides for a little later in our time. So let's start off because we had been on this topic for more than a couple of weeks.
Right.
This
Weeks.
is partly based off of a blog I put out about the different names I've had over the years, and for those who may not know, of course, my name is Kazika. It's a name I've adopted, and I'm legally have changed my name. It's been this for quite some time. But if you know me for a period of time, there's a lot of people who know me just as KP. Matter of fact, there's some people who didn't even know Kazika until I start emphasizing,
Mm.
Kazika. But then if you are part of my family and you're with me when I grew up, my mother named me Kevin, and which is a strong Gaelic name, but wasn't a name that really I identified with, partly because it just was a lot of people named Kevin. There's a lot of Negroes named Kevin out there. I'm just saying. I'm a child of the 70s, and for some reason, Kevin is like on the list of names.
Okay.
And so there's
Mhm.
so a lot of many Kevins out there.
Is there like Black Kevin?
Say again?
Is there a famous Black Kevin of that,
Kevin
especially of
Hart.
that era? I mean, back
I
then.
don't know. I don't know. I don't know
We
why.
ain't we
I
we
don't
ain't
know why it was popular. There has to be a science to it. I'll have to go look it up. But
right. Sidebar.
if I had to guess, it was with my mother. It was a nice, safe name for a woman who came from West Texas.
Mm,
It was a name.
mm,
Her name was Sandra. My grandmother's name was
okay.
Dorothy, and her husband's name
Okay.
was my grandfather's name was Eugene. These are
Eugene,
nice, strong
these
names.
are good, safe Black people. Strong, solid, but safe.
Yes,
Like, you wouldn't when you put out your job application, nobody's
yes,
gonna look at and be like, "Black man."
yes. No, matter of fact, that was one of the problems. Like, they see me coming for the interview, they're like, "Oh, this is a nigga."
Right, you're like, shocking.
I mean,
It's like,
literally all over their face.
"Dr.
They're like,
Kevin Prince." You're
hello,
like,
my
"Oh,
name is
all
Kevin
over."
Prince."
You know that look, right? You're like, you know that look, like eyes wide open. Hey, imagine that when somebody walks into your therapy office and it's Dr. Lawrence James and you open the door,
"Hello."
"Hi." You're like, "I'm Dr. James." And the shock and horror, like,
Yeah, it's
and I'm, yeah, yeah, I'm that cat.
it is
Yeah, I'm that.
it's kinda crazy when you think about it.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
Your girl is trying to get on the call here, so let's see. Okay, she says gonna join us in about 9 minutes, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah, I mean, and the thing is unfortunately, my grandmother, she recently passed, but she always called me Kevin. My
Oh,
aunts and uncles, they all refuse to call me Kazike, they all call me Kevin.
mhm,
So if I happen to
mhm.
bring someone with me who only knows me as KP or Kazike to a family event, they're like, "I noticed they all call you Kevin." I'm like, "Oh, I gotta tell you about that."
Mm. You're like, "There's a story."
And the thing is, I'll be honest, man, and I'm trying to resolve this. I've had some people who try to tease me. They try to tease me and be like, "I guess I should just start calling you Kevin." I'm like, "No."
No.
And I get serious real quick. I'm like, I don't it's not because I mean, I love my mom. I love it, but it's just not something I identify with. And so it's
Yeah.
almost like I know they're playing with me, but it just feels
Right.
almost a little bit of a
It ain't
slight,
funny.
and you don't have the
Yep.
credibility to call me Kevin. You don't
Right.
know me like my
You
family
don't know me
knows
like
me.
Right,
I want them to call me Kaziki in my family, but if they call me Kevin,
yeah,
I'm like, "Well, shit, you know me my whole life,
right,
so."
right. Forever, right. It's okay.
Does that make sense? I
It's
mean, it feels weird.
totally makes sense to me because my name is Lawrence James, and ever since I was a kid, I hated being called Larry. Drives me insane. 60 years later, it still drives me insane. And people, and I hate to say this because it's mostly white people. Hi, Larry. How are you? No, I'm not even nice about it. I'm like, it's Lawrence. There's no nice E. It's Lawrence. Well, does anybody ever call you Larry? I'm like, not anybody who knows me. The funniest part, though, KP, is my friends. If somebody happens to like call me Larry, they're like, no, his name is Lawrence. I don't even have to say it. It cracks me up. I was like, you have been so rigid about this that folks are like, hey, Anisha. Folks like, even all your friends are like, don't call him anything other than Lawrence. That's it. LJ, maybe.
Maybe,
Maybe
maybe.
Lawrence. Except for Mrs. Bowerland. She gonna live in infamy. I was like in 8th grade. I was like, it's Lawrence. Larry, man, me and that white lady, she beat me down all year. I was like, now that's the only time in my life where I gave up. I was like, it's the power differential and the whole deal. I was like,
It was a different time. You were younger, so
yeah, I didn't know how to fight back at that.
White lady, you better call me Lawrence.
I know, right? Right.
Hey,
I'm like, can I jack up the white lady at the Catholic school? I was like, pro.
hey, Alicia, we were actually gonna get to the two
Yeah.
topics that we wanted to talk about around interracial dating and domestic violence homicides, but we started off with talking about the different names that we sometimes have, and as you can hear, Lawrence here is unfortunately people have been trying to call him Larry for some time.
Dang.
I got people trying to call me Kaz. I'm like, fuck you.
Well, my name is Onisha, so
What do you
it's
get? What do you get, Onisha?
it's been a ride. I'm Nesha,
Mm.
Omniscia, Amnesia. It's the two ends. People don't,
That's the
man. It's
up, huh?
it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's the two ends. So, you know,
So who named you?
for
Where'd the name
me,
come from?
my name, I would like to say it came from some majestical place, but really my great grandma named me Ornitha.
Mm.
And my parents didn't hear her right, thank God.
Ornitha.
So they argued on if it was Anisha with the A or Onisha with the O. So they changed it from the A to the O. And she called me Ornitha until the day she passed.
Oh my
I don't,
God.
I don't know if
So
I
yeah,
heard that name before. Where's that come from?
yeah, we don't spread
We
that.
don't want to bring that. Now, does anybody else in your family call you Ornitha?
My cousin, I have a
Okay.
cousin, the menace in our family, but
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Trying to cause trouble.
Nisha, Oni girl, Sheena, Onasha.
Oh my God.
I
Girl.
had a lady
Oh girl.
I had a when I was in, like, 4th grade, I had to walk to a lady's house until my mom came to pick me up. She couldn't get my name. She was a black lady, and so she called me my middle name at the time, which was Dawn, and I never
Mm-mm.
responded.
Mm.
So I was just like,
On.
Dawn." I'm like,
Right.
"Who is that?"
Right. Who's that? Like, not my name.
But it's also very pretty. That's what I get a lot. I think
That is.
all the black girl names are pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's not, but it's like, "Oh, that's so pretty."
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Love it.
and
Love
part of
it.
the reason I wrote the blog is because there's different traditions across the globe, but there's one where your family names your name. There's the one that you name yourself, and there's the one name that you get from your community. And I think that applies in a lot of different ways, but we also have, I think, a lot to say about what names we will and will not be called.
Yeah, I'm like, "Which kinda names?"
You're like, not that.
Which kinda names? That's all I'm asking.
Respectful. Yes, yes, yes.
Res-
Okay,
So how
okay.
did you get to because
Kazike is actually from the Caribbean, so the original inhabitants of the Caribbean, so the Tainos and the Caribe. And they inhabited the islands from the Antilles near the coast of South America all the way through Cuba into Mexico. And they had a shared language. I mean, there's some dialects, of course, but they had a shared language. And the common name for a leader or a chief or something like that was the cacique. And so over a period of time, You saw, like, even to this day, there's people who are called Kizike who are uh, community leaders or drug
Mm.
kingpins.
Or drug king.
And then, in some parts of Latin America, it's kind of can be a little bit derogatory because kind of, you're almost like talking about the native people, those folks over
Mhm.
there. So, and unfortunately, during slavery, the overseer sometimes was seen as called the cacique. So it was really about power, authority, being in position of leadership. It was supposed to be a position of honored reverence, or even like a medicine person. So it could be also kind of quasi religious as well. So that's where it comes from. And I was looking for another name, and for y'all who know, my ex-wife is Puerto Rican. My kids are part Puerto Rican, so I wanted something that kind of reflected a little bit of the culture they come from. But also, my Nigerian brothers always think, "You sure that's not Nigeria?" I'm like, nah, nigga,
Yep.
I know where it comes from.
Right, right. Like, I don't think so, but,
But
I
I
will say
I I am 27% Nigerian, FYI.
well, see, there you go.
I got more. But I will say that I find more Black men that don't go by their first given name.
Oh,
Interesting.
I wonder why that is.
I
It's
wonder why
either the
that is.
second name or it's some other like they had an awakening somewhere down the road of, their journey into manhood, or they didn't like it. They don't want somebody shorten their name. They don't want this. They don't. So I've seen more Black men not go by at least their government name.
The government name.
It is a pretty
And I'm not
common
talking
thing.
about Little Ray Ray and them. I'm not talking about that.
No, right, right, right. The government name. So I was raised Catholic and I went to Catholic school. So when you go through communion, you're supposed to take or what is it communion? Not communion. When you come fully into the church, sort of like, I'd forgotten now the Catholic version of a bar mitzvah. Um, and you have to take another name. And I was like, I'm looking, Matthew, Luke, John, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, Lawrence.
Keeping it.
So technically, in the Catholic Church, my name is Lawrence James Jr. Right? And I was like, no, Lawrence is good. I was like, I'm okay with that. So I'm like, why change? I'm like, so yeah, so I'm Lawrence.
It's funny how names become, I don't know if it's a religious reason, but, like, even, like, Christopher Columbus, apparently that wasn't his real name. He adopted that
Hmm.
name because at the time, people picked names that were supposed to be represent something. So this whole
Hmm.
changing names is not a new thing, but it's kind of for me, I think it's funny because of all the so-called debate around pronouns, or when someone,
Hmm.
changes their name because they're in transition around their gender.
Hmm.
And so people make a big deal about keeping this. I'm like, we do it all the time, but for some reason,
All the
when
time.
that community decides to do it, it's some type of offense or something. It's just crazy.
Right, right,
Well,
right.
I know it's tied to our African ancestral heritage. It's called Namo, and I can't really say where it comes from, but it's the power in naming.
Mm, mm.
And so, we care about our names. We care about our names, and you can have the most made up, unique name, and you better get the apostrophe right, and you better
Get it right.
get all of it right. And so when I was pregnant with my oldest, they said something weird like about my placenta being viable. And so immediately I was like, I told my ex-husband at the time, I was like, hey, we got to name him something. And so we named our oldest son Kenji. It
Kenji.
is Japanese. My dad's name was Kenneth. He passed away in 1996. So we have a Kenneth. My sister's oldest son is a Kenneth. And so I wanted to honor my dad. And so
Mhm.
we named Kenji. And I found that Japanese, it means second son, Kenjiro, second son, but it also means strength and intelligence. So
Mm,
I like to say that got him through whatever he needed to get through. And he's a very strong person,
mm,
especially intelligently and talent wise. And he is intelligent.
mm.
Beautiful. And I love how when you're given a name, or even if you change your name, it ends up being like, it seems to me almost like opportunity to live into that name and the meaning behind it. Whether you're intentional or not, it just kind of happens, it seems like.
Did turn into little Ken at some point. It was his music name. But, I'm
Oh,
like, "Okay,
Yeah,
okay, Lil Ken." But,
love
he would not want me to share that with y'all. I'm sorry. Take it back. Cut it out.
Ken.
He's still Ken, but, he was Little Ken. Lil Ken.
And Lil' Ken,
yeah,
yeah.
like Lil Bow Wow. It's a good time for us to
Who's not the Bow Wow?
transition to the conversation around interracial dating. And we wanted to invite you, Anisha, about this because we wanted to make sure, one, we had a woman on here to have this conversation. But, I don't know what everyone's situation, but last time we had a conversation, we kind of alluded to it, because I remember, Onisha, you had mentioned about, well, if you do happen to date someone outside, those are certain qualities you wanted, right? You wanted to feel safe, and so I think we touched on a little bit around that, and so I wanted to revisit the theme because I think interracial dating definitely is a bigger thing that you see, at least in this country, more than it has ever in the past, at least acknowledged legally.
Right. Hope it stays that way.
Yes, 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 that's a real thing, right?
That's the next episode.
But and at the same time, I think it still tends to be a regional thing. I know when I've, for lack of a better word, feel like I've had to explain my dating life to others. One of the first things I typically say is, "Look where I live. I live in Austin. It's not particularly easy sometimes to find other folks when you look at the pool of people who you might want to date." I say, we're at 7%, and that's black men and women and children. So if you
Mm,
will it down just the numbers, it's not always really easy to find. And it's not because I don't want to date black women, because I have and I do. But it's a challenge versus a city like Atlanta or DC where the just sheer numbers are different. But it's a thing that comes up, and there's still a lot of feelings around interracial dating. I guess I want to hear y'all's thoughts about that. And what do you think is going on in our community when it comes to this?
I was gonna defer to you, my queen.
Okay. So I grew up in Lubbock, Texas. I'm not ashamed. I keep saying that because I'm like, Lubbock. Whoop. And it was not something that was normal in Lubbock. Lubbock is very much still segregated geographically. And I went to school in a predominantly black neighborhood. Then we moved to a predominantly white neighborhood. So it was kind of still taboo in that location for me. So coming here to Austin, yes, I did not see as many black men, but I still kept my sights on black men. But I used to date Hispanic men, and I thought that that was what was gonna happen. I thought I was gonna marry a Hispanic guy, and the brothers were the ones who were like, "Anisha, you go with a Mexican dude?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do." Like, y'all kiss and hold hands. Same
You don't
guy same guy got a baby by a Hispanic lady. I just never could get it. So the perceptions are still kind of weird and awkward, but I think I'm more open to it, but less, I don't know. Like, I think I have more access to dating interracially now. And I don't think I would care about the stigma attached to it, but I still kind of am like, I don't know.
still a thing. And who do you think is a thing for? Is it because of your friends, family, people in general?
Well, I can say this from kind of a social perspective. I absolutely think black women should consider dating outside their race. And it's not because I don't value dating black men or I think something negative about black men. I want black men to be accountable systemically to black women. But I just think that we are probably the most conditioned to date racially homogenous. And
Mm.
I see black women just dying without love, are headed to a life where they just don't have marriage or they don't have love because it's like, well, I think it's more taboo for black women out of all the races to date outside of their race. I do. But I think that more and more black women are opening that door. And if you were to take it outside of feelings and you pair people, I don't think it's a bad pairing for black women to be dating outside their race. And I don't think it's a bad pairing for black women to be with white men. I think our men say things like, and I'm not saying all men, but they say things like, white women aren't this and they aren't that. Like they don't have attitudes and they don't have this. It's stereotypical. But if you pair a black woman with people who are like, not intimidated by their income bracket or their education, are calling them masculine because of it, it might be an opportunity to open up a door of just being liberated and being who you are, i.e., white men are not dealing with the same oppression. And it sounds bad, but I think that's what Black men are really saying when they talk about white women. They don't have to deal with the systemic issues and the symptomatic attitudes that go with it from white women. They just think it's, you know, somehow inherent to Black and white. It's not. They don't have to go through what we go through. They're just a different person.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're talking about, though, because I think there's a cost on both sides of that. Because in dating white women, there is the opportunity for a lack of cultural continuity and understanding, which can be a downside of, I think, generally dating interracially. And I've dated white women, I've dated Asian women, I've dated Black women, I've dated Latinas. I mean, I feel like I'm the United Nations of dating. And frankly, the further my sense in my experience is, the further away I get from brownness, the more explanation about who I am, my experiences as a Black man, that has to go through. But even the Asian woman I dated, her mother was flat out racist, and like that created issues and problems in our relationship. I mean, she and I were cool, but the world around us made that somewhat difficult. And I will say this: at the end of the day, I date a person, and we work or don't work because of who they and I are, more so than their race. It's like, you got qualities that work really well with my qualities, or you don't. And the stuff around race adds additional baggage. But, it's like, if we ain't right, we ain't right. I mean, and if we good, we good, and maybe we can work around some of those things. Last thing I'll say is, I don't know about y'all, but I am seeing a lot more interracial couples, especially Black women with white men, and at much younger ages. I mean, like, the teens. I mean,
Oh,
some of that I think is exposure.
definitely.
I mean, well, when I was in high school, there was an absolute taboo against interracial dating. I think the taboos are less. I think the proximity for many young Black women it's greater. And frankly, I think white boys who wouldn't have dated a Black woman or young lady back when you were in high school, Anisha, back when I was in high school, are much more open. They don't feel as much of the taboo themselves, I think. And so they're more likely to come to a sister um, than they would have been back in the day. And so I think you're seeing a lot more of it. But I ain't gonna lie, I do look twice. Like when I see a sister with a white boy, I'm like, why is she with that goofy ass white boy? And I'm like, you know,
I do
and I'm
feel
like, and I'm like,
it's a
if
double
you're happy,
standard.
God bless you. Do what you
It's a
got to
double
do.
standard, I believe. I
Yeah.
believe we get more heat, if I say anything
I
about.
don't know, because if I see a Black dude with a really unattractive white woman, I have the same
Oh,
feeling. I
so
was like,
she only has to be unattractive.
it's a starting point. I'm like, you that this that's just my own personal thing.
What I get the most from Black men, if I even discuss dating outside of my race or a white man, is like, why would you wanna date someone that will only see you as a fetish? And the
That's
social consciousness shift that I always require is like, do Black men not see that white women see them as a fetish?
hmm,
Sexual fetish? I mean, I feel like Black men are probably the most objectified humans for that reason. And so, I'm not trying to like shift it back, but I think there's opportunity to encourage Black women that you are valued, wanted, beautiful, desired. And even as a Black girl coming up, we start there where we see white boys maybe not wanting to date us or being too afraid of what others might think. But then we see our own boys having their pick of others. And so there's a messaging there when Black boys and men don't select Black women to the world. It's not just, one to one between Black men and Black women. And I think that shift is happening where other people, and Black women have pushed back so hard, like, we're the bomb. So, you have, like, the Black woman effect now, the Black girl effect, whatever you wanna call it, where it's like she'll clean you up, she'll polish you up, and then, you the business when you date a Black woman. So that's actually a thing right now, and that could be where it's a mental shift.
Well, I guess one of the things I'm hearing in our conversations that it's one, there's definitely more openness for it. It doesn't relieve the complications that come with dating in general. If anything, it might make things challenging because to me, it always comes back to what those people are actually willing to talk about. Are you willing to talk about racism? Are you willing to deal with your racist as extended family members? Are you willing to deal with the dynamics of what when you go into a room, how people are going to see you and perceive you, and are you going to step up to the plate if someone says something negatively or something? And then if you have children, how are you going to deal with that? Because I remember one time my son, he was frustrated. He said he had a perceived frustration with his mother, but he's like, I don't know if mom's really gonna understand what it's like for me to be, I'm bi ethnic. I love my Puerto Ricanness, but I don't know if she will know if she knows what it's like for me to be a black kid or a growing black man. I don't know if she understands what that means for me. And I think the real issue wasn't so much whether she would understand that, but are we having those real conversations? And I think that's where I get frustrated when I see interracial dating is the unwillingness to talk about those things around race, around power, and oftentimes you have too many people who are just like, well, we just don't talk about that. I just love him. I just love her. She's the best. I'm like, you ain't talking about this? This thing that is impacting all of us? And that's where I sometimes have some frustration when it comes to interracial dating, that unwillingness to have those harder conversations in a relationship.
Have you found a relationship in your experience that was of value in the relationship, or have they been hard, in your situation?
In my experience, if we're not talking about race, then we're not gonna date very long. It has to happen because if it doesn't, there's gonna be, I mean, and it comes up in some form, different forms. There's the, oh, I just don't really think it's important. I'm already thinking countdown with them. And and then and if there's someone who I'm dating who I'm really enjoying, and then I'm always a little anxious about meeting their family because if their family is straight up racist, I'm like, I have to go to these people's homes for holidays and stuff. I ain't dealing with all that nonsense. So I'm thinking about it, and to be honest, even on some first dates, I'm like, so have you ever dated a black man? Have you ever dated a black man like me?
Mhm.
And for a lot of them, they're like, oh yeah, I dated a black guy back in high school, back in 1452. No, that don't count no more. But to
1452.
Had a
me,
couple of dates.
mhm.
Go ahead.
No, you can say.
I'm sorry. I've had a couple of dates. I've had dates with 2 white guys in the last year or so. And the first one, I couldn't get over the turkey neck. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I was like, I can't do that."
Wait a minute, you gonna get on me about looking at the looks, and you gonna be like, I
No,
had to
I'm
get
serious,
neck,
like,
got a turkey
I'm
neck.
dead serious. He had, like, it was like a beard right on his neck, and I'm not trying to be rude to white men, it's just that's what I'm saying, like, I do value the aesthetic of a black man. I value the look of a black man, how he look you up and down like he wanna eat you. I like, "Hey, little mama," I like all the stuff. I like all the blackisms except for the misogyny. And so that was one, but the other one, the first one I ever went on, we were chatting and I said, I just never went out on a date with the white guy. And he was like, okay, I can solve that for you. And then it was like, I'm
Come
dealing
on, Steph.
with Chad, my coworker. And I was like, I don't know that I would date Chad, my coworker. So, it just got really weird. He was an engineer and I work with engineers. I work in IT. And it was like, I wouldn't date Chad, so I don't sometimes know how to see it in this non-racial way, but nonetheless, they would have to be committed to being a safe person, being
Yeah,
open to dismantling, racism and anti-blackness and colonized mindset. So sometimes, yeah, I test it out too on first dates. I'm like, and then what I do is I stand in places and I fight our racist mayor and Trump, since Trump, I kind of get a litmus test to see,
yeah,
if they're gonna be like,
right. You gotta gauge the
you
environment.
go,
It's
yeah.
about safety. I mean, are we in some ways talking about where we feel safe? And if we are going to date someone interracially, we can't, I personally don't think I can feel safe if I look around the corner and they're minimizing my blackness, or they have people in their family who are outright racist, I'm not gonna be I'm not how can I be really vulnerable in those situations with people who are not willing to talk about it, aren't willing to deal with family members who are racist? I'm not gonna be able to build any real intimacy with them over a period of time.
Yeah.
And I know as a guy, I know last time, Onisha, you were talking about safety in a kind of physical sense, but when I think about safety for me as a guy is it's not it's less physical and more emotional safety. And I
Mhm.
think for a lot of us, I know when I talk to other men, we want to feel emotionally safe with a woman, regardless of
Mhm.
what race they might be. And I think sometimes it's a struggle.
Be socially safe. Like, I don't want you to harm me. I want you to have awareness. I want to be myself. I am like a nerdy, hippie, slightly neurotic, cancer loving. I want to be free. And I think all of us want that, right? So
Mhm.
I don't want to be shrinking because I'm black. I don't want to be shrinking because I'm a woman. I know that doesn't work for me. So, yes, physically safe, socially safe, emotionally safe. I don't want someone gaslighting me with my race or my gender. I don't want to be compelled to do the same. I don't want to call somebody like a cracker McCracker because I haven't dismantled my own ish.
Right.
I don't want that. So you got to really take introspect and see if you're ready for that. And I've looked and I've chatted with guys outside of my race, but at the end of the day, I can't say I'm inclined to be like that right there. I do love me some black men, but like I say, not limited.
I'm
I
mindful
appreciate
of the time, and I think we've had, hopefully, if nothing else, people have walked away with hopefully having some more conversation around, so they're not just going into interracial situations without any real thought, which is my fear. You just go into it like, yeah, we should just love each other because we're God's creatures. I'm like, no, it's not that simple. But I want to touch on the topic around domestic violence, homicides, and you brought this up earlier, Onisha, and I wanted to give you space to talk about that because I think it's a huge problem in our community in general, but it's been coming up in the last few weeks for a number of different reasons, and I want to give you the floor to talk about that, Onisha.
Well, it's very important to me. And I've been having this on my mantle for a very long time. This is Protect Black Women. I stole this from Meg The Stallion's performance on Saturday Night Live after she was shot. And people were
that.
making fun of her. And it's just like I've seen the misogyny uptick for a while, especially with Kevin Samuels.
Mhm.
And I follow rhetoric, I counter rhetoric, and on social media because I feel like that's where a lot of our social influence comes from. And then there is social impact. So when you dehumanize any group of people and you sustain that in places like media, then people feel less inclined to take up for those people. They see them as less human. They're okay with sanctioning violence against them. As I said the last time, I feel like we as a Black community cannot try to emulate white structures. And there is a lot of white male patriarchy ideology coming from our men and impose upon our women. And I care more about us in the sense that this is radiating from inside outward. The domestic femicide, the femicide cases, it was like 5 or 6 of them this last week.
Right. Mhm.
And I am mad. I even said it on my page right now. There's conversation on my social media page right now because I was like, I'm mad at black men. And people are like, who? Who specifically? Because we're not all the same. Well, white people say the same thing to us. So I've gotten men from like the silence of our men parallel to the silence of white people when we were going through all of the unarmed shootings and all of the wrongful deaths. I see the parallel of our men say things like, I'm not an abuser. I'm not this. I don't know people who are. So it's like wash. But
Yeah.
black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to be killed by domestic partner violence. And when we talk about black on black crime in the sense of like gang violence, how are we missing domestic violence?
Mhm.
And the only ask that I can say to our men is to do 2 things, which is what I do ask also of white peers, which is decenter and let go of the fragility. And it's an insult to call a man fragile. So it's a hard conversation to have. I've been trying to have it for so long, but when it leads up to the fact that I can't let it go,
Mm.
I mean, I'm talking to our men who should identify the most with us about oppressive behavior. But then when it's coming from the inside, when the call is coming from inside the house, I feel like our black men are like, click, they're hanging up on us and not hearing. And it is heartbreaking. And it's also very scary because I've heard men say things like, I've had conversations with men I know. And a guy that I know literally said, there is no space for men to say, I wonder what she did. And I'm glad he said that because that is what people are actually saying. Well, women don't know how they make men feel. Women don't know what men go through when this and this is happening. And a lot of the focus was on Lieutenant Fairfax, who killed his wife in front of his kids or in the same house while his kids were there. He's an alpha. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and this no way reflects him as an organization. But a lot of them, the men were centering. And they were like, man, I just talked to him yesterday. I serve on this board with him. I serve on that board. And then Roland Martin came out with like, oh, this is a mental health crisis
Mhm,
for Black men.
mhm.
Well, is the crisis of Black men being subject to police brutality and police murders, is that a mental wellness issue for police officers? So when we frame it in a way where our men can see that female oppression is real as racial oppression, and if our men are part of that collective who can harm us, I want us to shift it and say, Black men, what are you going to do about these high domestic violence rates? Black men and Black women are fighting. If you look at the rates, we both have very high rates of reporting domestic violence, but Black women are losing with their lives. So, how do we reshape this conversation so our men can stop centering it on them and say, oh, when you say Black men and violence, you're saying I'm violent. No, I'm saying there's a collective issue that's harming Black women. It doesn't value our families. That one family is ruined.
Sure. Yeah.
The dad is gone, the mom is gone, the kids are in a non parental system. And so this week, I have literally just been knots in my stomach, not because it just happened, but because I saw the dismissive attitudes and the discourse on social media and in my personal life with Black men that I think it's time for an awakening.
I appreciate everything that you've said, and I think it's spot on. One of the concerns I have as a mental health professional is we uh, blanket statement. It's gotten too easy to say that something is a mental health crisis. Um, you know, Justin Fairfax did have depression from everything that's reported and needed to get help, and he wasn't doing that. He put himself at the center of everything in a way that was very unhealthy for him and for his family. And I'll say this, and maybe you can help me with this, Anisha. And I hear the conversation about centering women in this conversation, and in some ways that becomes difficult because his behavior took her life. And so help me help others. If we want to have a nuanced conversation around this, in these kinds of instances where femicide is occurring, what does centering women in that conversation begin to look like? You have any thoughts on that?
I do. Centering women, first of all, you have to center the power that women have and the power that women don't have. And you can look at history. So when we talk about racial oppression, we go back. We know we cannot talk about that without looking at slavery, to Jim Crow, to Black codes, to policing. We know that there is a train of history. There's a long memory. So when we get to women and centering women, look at the history of women. And then when you're centering Black women, you do have to specifically look at that history because Black women experience misogynoir, which is the unique way by which we have that intersection of race and gender. And it's from all
Mm.
races and genders. It's from white women, it's from white men, it's from Black men. It does impact us in this very strong, like, pressure point. So when you center, go back to the history, look at how Black women, slavery was basically uh, based on the sanguinity of the Black woman, the mother. So our wombs have been enslaved. When you look at it right now, our wombs are still enslaved. Legislative wise, our wombs are still enslaved. We were up till 1976 not able to open a bank account without a man's approval. That's all women. Black women didn't really get the right to vote freely until 1965, separate and apart from the 90s of white women. So when you center Black women, you look at the social structures that they are oppressed under, and you can't ignore Black men as one of those collectives. So, how would you like to be married to a white man? I mean, it sounds crazy, but we have the potential to be living with our oppressor.
Mm.
And if, for me personally, I'm asking people, men, to not decenter men to the point that we're decentering their humanity, but I'm asking us to decenter Black men specifically in the cases where we're talking about how Black women are oppressed, because we need to separate interpersonal strife that we all have in relationships and in social situationships from misogyny. That mental health crisis could be coming from patriarchal ideology pressure, not the woman, the pressure to be a man and to show up as a man this way, how society tells you, and as a man this way, and the pressure to, or the privilege to get to ignore the humanity of that woman. And people having it from as small of an act as in women are just for sex up to I own, I control. If your wife isn't submissive to you, you're not a man. So that mental conditioning has to be dismantled. And when we center women or when we have this conversation, we can talk about how the mental health is being degraded because Black men operate in a society that they really can't access fully. But some of that society is oppressive to women. So yes, mental health, but why is there mental health issues? Is it because now even if I'm educated, I'm more likely to not get a job and face unemployment. So I'm dealing with economic oppression. I'm dealing with all types of oppression. And then the person in close proximity with me, I either use that to lash out, or I use that to gauge if I'm successful as a man. We're not teaching our men, in my opinion, to define manhood without the relationship and proximity to how they are interacting with women.
And one of my frustrations about um, the focus on mental health is that, yes, mental health is in there, but it has a lot to do with the ideas they had about women in the first place, right? That led to the violence. Because there's plenty of people with mental health
Mhm.
issues are not going killing women, Black women in
Going
particular.
on.
They're depressed, they're anxious, they're whatever feelings, they're suicidal, but they're not trying to kill women, and they don't have thoughts that are so negative and dehumanizing towards women. And so to me, I see what they're trying to do, but I think they're misled because they're not challenging the misogyny that's it's embedded in a lot of the lifestyle that that person might be living, and it was part of the problem in the first place. Because this, I mean, we all know people with mental health issues. They don't have the ideology of misogyny that kind of is under it, and it's problematic. I think in a lot of ways, there's too many Black men who have really sexist ideas about women, regardless of their mental health status,
Yeah.
and that's
And when there's nonconformity to those expectations, and we live in a society that really doesn't value the rights of women or still sees women as second class citizens, then you're sanctioning that violence and we're able to ignore it. I mean, the stats have been there this whole time. And I care because I see situations like the Fairfaxes, I see it as this is our normative. This is the average successful Black couple that we're seeing on social media in pajamas during Christmas. And we're fighting wars in our homes. And if we can put this on highlight, I feel like it's one of the first places we need to touch when we talk about what are some of the issues we need to deal with in the Black community. I feel like family home, safety in the family home dismantling systems that make us fight, or dismantling systems that make us lose sight of our own humanity within our circle, because this is what happened in slavery. I think we need to start there.
And I'll be honest,
But
what I think about
protect Black women,
yeah.
protect us.
Yes, yes,
Doesn't always mean putting up your dukes.
right.
It means don't harm, be aware, be conscious, and check your bros.
And thank you for that saying that last part because unfortunately or fortunately, black men know these black men who are committing violence against black women or women in general. And they're looking the other way or they're not challenging them. They hear it, they see it, they're suspicious of it, and they do nothing. And I say oftentimes we're in a very good position to challenge some of the thinking that leads to the violence, but also calling out the violence. Like, I don't care what she said to you, bro. You don't put your hands on anybody,
Not a
let
problem.
alone your woman or your wife, your girlfriend. There's absolutely no room for that. And I think there's oftentimes way too much room, allowances for that kind of behavior where we're putting our hands on people, particularly our partners, for whatever. And I'm probably a sensitive to this because I used to run a program for men who were basically assaulting their wives. They were court ordered, and the excuses they had for hitting women or pushing a woman or what. I was so frustrated. She just was pushing on my buttons, and that's she makes me crazy. I'm like, shut up. I don't want to hear them
Mhm.
excuses because that's all they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're creating. I mean, I think we have created a part of what we as a community have to look at is what is the culture. What is Black culture that we've created that is allowing of this kind of behavior? And femicide is the most egregious of it. But on a day to day basis, we have accepted within our community behaviors which are harmful to women and harmful to children and frankly harmful to Black men as well. And we've made it okay through our silence, through our through all of the behaviors. And so we really do need to look at what aspects of our culture and how we are raising our young men that is allowing of this kind of
I think we
behavior.
need way more conversations about this, and we need to share the space, but we need to put the people who are harmed the most at the center. We need to elevate their voices. This is in every space where there is an imbalance between social power and privilege. And so it's no different when we have these internal conversations, just like we need to address, homophobia within our ranks, or we need to address colorism within our ranks. But I see that this is one of the ones that we have a lot of very harmful implications. They're fatal and they impact me, people like me the most. And when we are thinking about dating, I have to have this in my dating. And
Absolutely.
that's crazy. Not just like, oh, is this a random person that ain't got it? But it's like, is this person going to be someone safe for me, or is this person's mentality about who I might be and reflect to them going to be harmful to me? But I do have to leave and get back to work.
Anisha, it was good seeing you. We'll wrap things up here,
Oh,
but
it's just
we might need to come back to this topic. So
yeah.
I will talk with you more, Onisha, and see if we can continue this conversation. That's cool.
That's cool. I won't call y'all Larry and I won't say bye, calves. I'm just going to say, y'all have a great,
All right, you
don't
too.
call me Ernie. All right.
All right. Good seeing you.
It's
Y'all too.
Hey man, I think it was a really good conversation we're having here, and I want to put a pin in it because I want us to return to it.
yeah.
I do want to wrap us up because we we have one more topic, and since we are kind of short on time, I want to get straight to it, and then we can wrap it up with the celebration card. Um, our side eye is for Tucker Carlson. He's been around for quite a long time. And that fool is now apologizing for supporting Trump and and not that he got him elected, but he was a part of the movement of folks, and he used his platform on social media and on television to support Trump, and now he's regretting it. And I'm like, bro, you didn't see all this, the lies, the deception. I mean, and one more thing I'll say is he had been caught when they were doing their court case with Fox when they were being sued. They found information where it showed Tucker Carlson hated Trump. And now he's coming years later to say, oh, I was mistaken. You always knew he was wrong. But
You always
now
right,
you,
right.
what the hell, man?
Well, it was convenient. It was convenient for you to be supportive of him because it pushed an agenda and now he's finally hit on something that, you know, doesn't align with your agenda. So therefore you want to push back, him, Megyn Kelly, a whole host of people, half the MAGA elite, including what's her name, Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's like you're aligned until he came after you or you weren't supportive of his position. And I think it speaks to, frankly, to what I see as a disingenuousness about these conversations. You're trying to rehabilitate something, image, whatever it is, but it tells me as a human being, you have very little value or values other than pragmatism in your pocketbook. Because if he was a piece of shit the whole time you knew him, he was a piece of shit and you shouldn't have been supportive. Now all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I always knew he was a piece of shit. That's actually the worst thing you could say. You'd be better off saying being like, I didn't know he was a piece of shit. Now I know he's a piece of
Right.
shit. So therefore I'm like, but when you tell me, oh, historically I knew he was a piece of shit, but I voted for him, I held my nose and voted for him anyway. Nah, you can't rehab that to me. Right? What's the next issue that you're going to engage in the same kind of behavior around? This is pragmatic and works for me. And so, he could have kept his apology as far as I'm concerned.
He could have kept his apology, and I know he was at the time, he was having a kind of what felt like an intimate conversation with his brother, who also admitted because he was a speechwriter for Trump, apparently, the brother, and so he was regretting it as
Mhm.
well, and so in some ways, like, I guess his attempt was to be showing some kind of intimate conversation about their shared regret. I
Military,
would have
yeah,
been better off with them not doing that and just
ever
and just saying, "Look, we're not supporting him, we're gonna support someone else."
keep it moving.
Because, like you say, it does come off as just disingenuous. And
What's funny?
to be honest, it's going to have to take a much longer time for him to demonstrate his regret or whatever. Because the reason he seems to be making a shift, if folks are wondering, is that of the Epstein file issue and starting another wars actually. And so those are the reasons he's being given.
Let me make a connection maybe to the last conversation we were just having. Um, it's excuse making for your behavior, right? When we talked about black men and femicide and domestic violence, you're blaming the person who you are victimizing for your behavior. You're not really taking ownership. And I think that's the disingenuousness of the Tucker Carlson thing is you're not truly taking ownership for a choice and that you made, right? So how can I respect how can I believe in that? Because if I go back to the kids that I was talking about, the connections that you are making are super soft and super weak and not very nuanced. And so I can't believe anything like if I'm supposed to believe you learned a lesson, there's nothing that you're saying that teaches me that you have learned something and that you're thinking differently or feeling differently about this situation. And so it rings very hollow. And so you're centering, almost yourself as if you're a victim in the situation, and you're not. You are.
That's exactly what Onisha talked about, right? Because how they're centering himself, kind of centering men, and all this.
Mhm.
Yet the problem is that you saw this a long time ago, and now that it doesn't personally benefit you, or you're preparing for the next cycle of elections or whatever, or
Correct.
saving your job. I don't know. It's really
Exactly.
disappointing. Well, that's our side eye for old Tucker Carlson. I'm gonna do our celebration card and then we can wrap things up. I spoke my truth. Since we started one about talking about truth, I figured we should end one. I spoke my truth
Okay.
when blank. I spoke my truth when blank. I spoke my truth when I said, Y'all better not call me Cass. Better not call me Kevin.
Like
You know,
I ain't
some
going. I
words.
ain't with it. Except for grandma.
Except for
Like
grandma. Everyone
she
else
get a pack.
better shut the hell up.
Shut up. Shut up.
So, what's yours?
Yeah. You know, I spoke my truth when I was able to say I love the kids that we're working with and that I'm proud of them. Because I think that feels to me like it's supporting our community, and it was truly what was in my heart and in my soul. And I think oftentimes it feels like my truth is here, but my truth is really here in my soul. And so I'm trying to listen to and speak to that piece of me. Like what is my soul compelling me to do? That's where my truth comes from, and to take more opportunities to speak from that place.
I love you hearing that. I was having a conversation with my ex-wife. We were talking, you're talking about the kids. That's where our primary
Mhm.
focus is these days. And one of the things we're talking about is, you know, This generation, I think, is complicated because of the economy and all the things I think they're trying to lift. And one of the things I was telling my ex-wife, was how proud I am of my kids, and I was really proud of my daughter and
Mm,
some things she was kind of navigating and stuff, and same thing with my son. And she goes, "I don't know if she always knows that you're proud of her. Can you make sure you tell her?"
mm,
I was like,
awesome.
and I felt bad at first 'cause I was like, "How could she
I
not
re
know?" Right? But I'm like, you know what? Doesn't matter how it happened or it's happening. Let me go and tell her and let her know how
mm,
proud I am of her. And so I am so proud of my daughter. I'm so proud of my son, trying to do their best. And so when I heard you say that earlier, I was really glad to hear that from you, because I think we need to hear that we're
I think we
proud and
do.
we're really happy for the accomplishments people
Yeah,
are having. So
exactly,
beautiful thing.
exactly. That's important.
Yeah. Well, hey man, listen, while black, I think we had a really great conversation.
Well,
We're
but
definitely going to return
awesome.
to the domestic violence, homicide conversation.
Yeah,
I think there's other layers to be unfolded in that conversation.
yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
we'll be coming back next week, right?
We'll be back next week.
All right. We went on a little long today, but that's okay because we had a lot to say.
We had a
We were riffing.
lot to say. We was ripping, right, and we still black.
Exactly. Still black. Well, brother, it's always good to
Still
see
black.
you. Anisha, it was good to
Always
have
good to see you,
you.
brother.
And hopefully we'll come back soon in the coming weeks to continue our conversation. I'll see you next time. All right, bro?
So, great week. Bye.